I was the one who found the body, but that isn't why they believed I killed him. They believed it because in a town like Briarwood, stories matter more than truth, and mine was too quiet to compete with theirs. Mark Holloway was lying face down behind the old community center, half buried in snow, his blood seeping into the ground as if the earth itself was trying to swallow him before anyone could ask questions. The night air was sharp enough to hurt my lungs, but I remember kneeling beside him anyway, my hands shaking as I checked for a pulse I already knew wouldn't be there. I remember thinking, absurdly, that he looked smaller than he used to, stripped of the confidence that once filled every room he walked into. I called 911 because that's what decent people do. I didn't know yet that decency would become my greatest liability. Briarwood is the kind of small American town people romanticize from a distance. White fences, fall festivals, smiling neighbors who know your name and your business. We have just over 4,000 residents and a long memory. Nothing truly disappears here, it just waits to resurface when it's needed. Mark Holloway had been a fixture in this town since high school. Star quarterback, future leader, the man who owned buildings, sponsored events, and shook hands like he was doing you a favor. People trusted him because he made them feel chosen. I had trusted him once too, years ago, before I learned how charm could rot into control, how love could quietly become fear. I hadn't planned to see him that night. The library's heating system had failed, and I'd taken a box of donated books to the community center to finish sorting them somewhere warm. When I pulled into the parking lot, I saw Mark arguing with someone near the back of the building. I didn't recognize the other person at first, just the tension in the air, the way Mark's shoulders stiffened when he was angry. I hesitated, told myself it wasn't my business, but then I heard fear in the other voice. Real fear, the sound that slips out when someone realizes they're losing control. Then came a dull, sickening crack, and everything went quiet. By the time I reached the spot, Mark was already dying, and the other person was gone, erased into the night. The police arrived quickly, sirens slicing through the calm like accusations. Sheriff Alan Brooks took one look at me, at the blood on my gloves and my footprints in the snow, and I saw his mind settle on a conclusion. He didn't ask if I knew Mark. He told me he knew we had history. Everyone did. We dated years ago, and when it ended, Mark made sure the town noticed. What no one knew was how afraid I'd been back then, how carefully I'd learned to manage his moods, how much effort it had taken to leave without provoking him. I told the sheriff the truth as simply as I could. I said I found him, I said I tried to help. He nodded, wrote notes, and looked at me like I was already guilty. By morning, the town had decided who I was, quiet librarian, divorced, the kind of woman who fades into the background until she becomes convenient. They whispered about jealousy and revenge, about a woman who couldn't let go. It was a neat story, and people here love neatness. They searched my house and found old messages from Mark I'd never had the strength to delete. Threats, mockery, promises that he would finish what he started. Those messages became my motive. What they didn't bother looking for was context, or the possibility that Mark Holloway might have made more enemies than just me. Emily Carter stood beside me at the candlelight vigil, her fingers tight around my hand, her face pale and wet with tears. She was Mark's fiancée, Briarwood's darling, the woman who volunteered everywhere, who remembered anniversaries and baked pies for grieving families. She whispered that she couldn't believe he was gone, that the world felt unreal without him. Her hands were trembling, but not with grief, with fear. That was the moment something shifted inside me. Grief has a weight to it, a gravity. What I felt from Emily was something sharper, more frantic, like someone waiting for the ground to give way beneath their feet. They arrested me 3 days later. No murder weapon, no eyewitness, just a past relationship and a town ready to move on. In the interrogation room, Sheriff Brooks asked me why now, why after all these years. I laughed because the question was so wrong it hurt. They never ask who benefits from a death like that. They only ask who fits the role. Jail has a way of stripping you down to your thoughts. In that narrow bed, with the lights buzzing overhead, I replayed the night again and again until details sharpened instead of blurred. The voice I hadn't recognized. The tone beneath the fear, Emily's tone when she thought no one was watching. I started noticing the things I'd ignored before. The way Emily had always been there after Mark's fights, soothing, managing, redirecting. The bruise I'd once seen on her wrist, the way she'd smiled too quickly when I asked about it. Mark hadn't been the only one who liked control. From my cell, I began writing letters to people who'd left Briarwood, women who'd brushed past Mark's life and vanished. Patterns emerged, ugly and undeniable. Emily's name threaded through all of it, quiet but constant, always helping, always present. The letter that changed everything came from a woman named Lily Monroe, who had fled town years ago with nothing but a suitcase and a warning she'd never explained. She wrote that Emily had helped her escape, had told her Mark would kill her if she stayed. She wrote that Emily had been right, and that she'd also been planning something else, something final. When the trial began, winter pressed against the courthouse windows, and the town packed the benches like they were attending a play. The prosecution painted me as cold and resentful. Emily took the stand, her voice trembling just enough to be convincing, and said she had trusted me, welcomed me. I watched her closely. She never cried for Mark, only for the life she was losing. When it was my turn, I didn't beg. I told the truth the way it actually feels, messy and uncomfortable. I talked about fear, about silence, about the cost of being believed too late. When they said there was no evidence against Emily, I told them they simply hadn't wanted to see it. The security footage from behind the community center finally played. The camera everyone had dismissed as broken. Emily's car, her coat, her voice sharp and unmistakable. The courtroom went silent. Emily didn't collapse or sob. She screamed, a raw sound of fury and exposure, and in that moment the mask finally cracked. She confessed not because she wanted redemption, but because she couldn't stand being unseen anymore. Mark had been planning to leave her to expose her manipulations, the women she'd controlled into silence. Killing him, she said, felt like freedom. The verdict came quickly, not guilty. Emily was led away in handcuffs, her face empty now that the performance was over. Briarwood didn't meet my eyes as I walked out into the cold, but I didn't need them to. I still live here. I still work at the library. The town feels different now, thinner somehow, like a story that's lost its certainty. Mark Holloway is buried on a hill overlooking the place he once owned in every way that mattered. Emily Carter is buried under the truth she tried to hide, and I've learned that in towns like this, the quiet ones aren't harmless. We're just watching, waiting, and when we finally speak, the sound carries further than anyone expects. Please like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.